Queen Zixandra sat on her crystal throne and looked down at the small alien who stood before her. The creature was barely half her height and had gray skin that looked old and wrinkled. His name was Ambassador Helterim, and he came from something called the Galactic Council. The Queen did not care much about councils or ambassadors. She ruled 12 star systems with her iron fist. Her people, the Veltar, had the best weapons and the fastest ships in the galaxy. No one could stand against them when they decided to take new worlds. "Your Majesty," the ambassador said in his squeaky voice, "I come to warn you about the Terran sector. You must not go there." The Queen laughed. The sound echoed through her great throne room like thunder. Her generals and advisors who stood along the crystal walls all turned to look at the small ambassador. They could see their queen was amused. "Warn me," she said. "Little creature, I have conquered more worlds than you have years in your short life. What could possibly make me afraid of some unknown sector?" The ambassador's gray skin turned darker. He was nervous. "The humans, Your Majesty, they are different. They are dangerous." "Humans?" The Queen leaned forward on her throne. The crystal made a sharp sound as her claws touched it. "I have never heard of these humans. Are they large? Do they have strong weapons, big ships?" "No, Your Majesty, they are small like me. Their weapons are old. Their ships are slow compared to yours." The ambassador's voice got quieter. "But they fight like nothing else in the galaxy." General Korthval stepped forward from his place by the wall. He was the Queen's top military leader and had won battles on 50 different worlds. His purple skin was covered in scars from many fights. "Your Majesty," he said with his deep voice, "I have heard stories about these humans. Some of the older races speak of them in whispers. They call them the Death World Warriors." The Queen's eyes grew bright with interest. "Death World Warriors? Tell me more, General." Korthval looked uncomfortable. "The stories say humans come from a world so dangerous that just living there makes them into killers. They say these humans have fought off 3 different alien invasions and won every time." 3 invasions? The Queen stood up from her throne. She was very tall, nearly 8 feet, and her crystal armor caught the light from the room's glowing walls. "Who invaded them?" "The Craxi Empire tried first, about 50 years ago. They sent 1,000 ships to take the human world. None came back." The general paused. "Then the Bloodclaw fleet tried 20 years later. Same thing happened. The last was the Hive Mind Collective. They sent 10,000 ships. And?" the Queen demanded. "The humans destroyed them all, but that is not the strangest part." Korthval's voice got lower. "The humans never tried to take revenge. They never attacked the homeworlds of their enemies. They just waited." The Queen was quiet for a moment. Then she started laughing again, even louder than before. The sound filled the throne room and made the crystal walls ring like bells. "Fairy tales," she said when she stopped laughing. "Children's stories to frighten the weak. General, you disappoint me. I thought you were smarter than this." "But Your Majesty," the ambassador tried to speak. Silence. The Queen's voice was like a roar. "I have heard enough foolishness for one day. You speak of a small race with old weapons and slow ships, but somehow they defeat armies? Impossible." She walked down the steps from her throne until she stood over the small ambassador. "I think these humans are nothing more than a story, a lie told by cowards who are afraid to explore new space. They probably do not even exist." The ambassador looked up at her with his large, dark eyes. "Your Majesty, please listen. I have met humans before. I have seen what they can do. They are not like other races. When they fight, they do not fight to win territory or treasure. They fight to survive. And when a human fights to survive, they become something terrible." "Terrible?" The Queen laughed again. "I will show you something terrible, little ambassador. I will take my fleet to this Terran sector. I will find these mythical humans, and I will prove to the galaxy that the great Queen Zixandra fears nothing and no one." She turned to General Korthval. "How many ships do we have ready for battle?" 200 of our best warships, Your Majesty. The newest models with plasma cannons and energy shields. Perfect. And how many ships do these humans have? The ambassador answered in a weak voice. Intelligence reports say maybe 50 ships guard their home system. The Queen clapped her hands together. The sound was sharp and loud. 50 against 200. And you say I should be afraid? General, prepare the fleet. We leave for the Terran sector in 3 days. Your Majesty, the ambassador said one more time. Please reconsider. The humans may seem weak, but nothing. The Queen cut him off. I have made my decision. In 1 week, the flag of the Veltar Empire will fly over the human homeworld. Their surrender will be the first step in expanding my empire to new galaxies. The ambassador bowed his head. Then I have failed in my mission. I pray you will remember my warning when you face them. As the ambassador was led away by guards, the Queen turned to her generals and advisors. They all looked excited about the coming conquest. Only General Korthoval seemed worried. My Queen, he said quietly, perhaps we should gather more information about these humans before we attack. Information? The Queen's eyes flashed with anger. General, we have the most advanced technology in the galaxy. Our weapons can destroy entire cities with one shot. Our shields can stop any attack. What more information do we need? I just think, you think too much, General. We are the Veltar. We are the rulers of the galaxy. No small race of primitives can stand against us, no matter what silly stories say about them. The Queen walked back to her throne and sat down. Send word to all the other races in the galaxy. Tell them that soon, the Veltar Empire will control the Terran sector. Let them see what happens to worlds that do not bow to me willingly. As her advisors hurried to carry out her orders, Queen Zixandra smiled. She was already imagining how easy this conquest would be. A few shots from her great ships and these humans would surrender just like every other race had done. Then she would have new worlds to rule and new slaves to work in her factories. The Queen had no idea that somewhere in the Terran sector, humans were getting ready for her arrival. She did not know that they had been preparing for this day since the last alien fleet tried to attack them. She did not know that every human child learned to fight before they learned to read. Most importantly, she did not know that in 3 days, she would learn the hard way that some legends are true. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship and watched the stars through the main window. His ship was called the UES Defiance, and it was Earth's biggest warship. Around him, his crew worked quietly at their stations, checking weapons and shields. Captain, said Lieutenant Ryan Carter from his communications station. Admiral Grant is calling from the flagship. Jake pressed a button on his chair. Admiral, this is Morrison. Go ahead. Admiral Lisa Grant's voice came through the speakers. She sounded calm, but Jake could hear the tension underneath. Jake, our long-range sensors are picking up something big coming our way. Looks like about 200 ships. 200? Jake felt his stomach tighten. The human defense fleet only had 50 ships total. Any identification yet? Still working on it. But Jake... They're not responding to our peaceful contact signals. Dr. Johnson thinks they might be the Veltar Empire we've heard rumors about. Jake knew about the Veltar. Intelligence reports said they were conquerors who took over star systems for fun. They had never come this far into human space before. What are your orders, Admiral? Form up the fleet in defensive position around Jupiter. Try to make contact when they arrive. Maybe we can talk our way out of this one. Jake almost laughed, but it was not funny. In his 20 years of military service, he had learned that aliens who traveled in groups of 200 ships were usually not interested in talking. Copy that, Admiral. Defiance moving to position. Jake turned to his crew. You heard the Admiral. All hands, battle stations. This is not a drill. Lights started flashing red throughout the ship. The crew moved faster now, running to their posts. Jake had trained with these people for years. They were good soldiers and good friends. Dr. Amy Johnson arrived on the bridge a few minutes later. She was the ship's expert on alien races and first contact procedures. Her job was to help humans talk to new species without starting wars. Captain, she said, slightly out of breath from running. I've been studying what we know about the Veltar. They're not known for peaceful negotiations. What do you mean? They've conquered 12 star systems in the last 50 years. Their method is simple. Show up with overwhelming force, demand surrender, then take over. No species has ever successfully fought them off. Jake looked back at the stars. Somewhere out there, 200 enemy ships were coming toward Earth. Well, Doctor, looks like we might be the first to try. The bridge was quiet for a moment except for the soft beeping of computers. Then Lieutenant Carter spoke up. Captain, I'm getting something on long-range sensors. They're dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of our system. Put it on the main screen. The window in front of them changed to show space near Pluto. At first, Jake saw nothing. Then, one by one, ships began appearing. They were huge, much bigger than human ships, and they glowed with a strange purple light. Dear God, whispered Dr. Johnson. Look at the size of them. Jake watched as more and more ships appeared. They kept coming until the space around Pluto was filled with them. Each ship was at least twice the size of the Defiance, and some were even bigger. Captain, said Carter, I'm reading 212 ships total. They're moving into formation and heading our way. Time until they reach us? At their current speed, 6 hours. Jake pressed the communication button again. Admiral Grant, this is Morrison. I'm sure you're seeing what we're seeing. Copy that, Jake. All ships, maintain defensive positions. Do not fire unless fired upon. We're going to try diplomacy first. 3 hours later, the alien fleet had reached Jupiter's orbit. Jake could see them clearly now through the bridge windows. The alien ships looked like they were made of crystal and metal with sharp edges and glowing weapons. Captain, said Carter, they're trying to communicate, audio only. Put it through. A new voice came through the speakers. It was female but cold and commanding. The words were in perfect English, which meant the aliens had been studying humans. Small creatures of the third planet. I am Queen Zixandra, of the Veltar Empire. You are now part of my territory. Surrender immediately and I might let some of you live. Jake looked at Dr. Johnson. She nodded, which meant it was his turn to respond. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Defiance. You are in human space without permission. We request that you identify your intentions and open peaceful negotiations. The Queen's laugh came through the speakers like breaking glass. Peaceful negotiations? Little human, you are in no position to negotiate anything. I have 200 ships. You have maybe 50 small boats. Surrender now, or I will destroy every ship in your pathetic fleet. Dr. Johnson stepped forward. Your Majesty, I am Dr. Amy Johnson, Earth's representative for First Contact Protocols. We believe all conflicts can be resolved through communication and mutual understanding. Perhaps we can find a solution that benefits both our species. The only solution, the Queen replied, is your complete surrender. You have 1 hour to decide. After that, my ships will open fire. The communication ended. The bridge was silent except for the humming of the ship's engines. Well, said Jake. So much for diplomacy. Admiral Grant's voice came through the speakers. All ships, this is Admiral Grant. You heard the alien ultimatum. We have 1 hour to prepare. Check all weapons and shields. If they want to fight, we'll give them one they won't forget. Jake walked over to the weapons station. What's our status, Lieutenant? All plasma cannons charged and ready, Captain. Missile tubes loaded, energy shields at maximum power. Good. Jake looked out at the alien fleet. Even from this distance, he could see their weapons glowing brighter. They were getting ready to attack. Dr. Johnson came up beside him. Captain, I have to ask, do you really think we can win this? They outnumber us 4-1 and their ships are bigger than ours. Jake was quiet for a moment. He thought about his wife and daughter back on Earth. He thought about all the people counting on him and the other ship captains to protect them. Doctor, he said finally, I've been in the military for 20 years. I've fought pirates, rebels, and alien raiders. I've learned something important in all that time. What's that? It's not about the size of your ships or how many guns you have. It's about what you're fighting for. Jake turned to look at her. They're fighting to conquer new territory. We're fighting to protect our home. That makes all the difference. The hour passed quickly. When it was over, the alien queen's voice came through the speakers again. Humans, your time is up. Have you decided to surrender? Jake pressed the communication button. This is Captain Morrison. We have made our decision. We will not surrender. We will not bow to you. If you want our system, you'll have to take it. Then you have chosen death, little human. All ships, open fire. Space lit up with purple energy beams as 200 alien ships began shooting at the human fleet. Jake gripped his chair as the first shots hit their shields. All ships, came Admiral Grant's voice. Return fire. Show them what Earth is made of. The battle for humanity's survival had begun. Purple energy beams filled the space around Jupiter as the alien fleet attacked. Captain Jake Morrison held onto his chair as his ship shook from enemy fire. Around him, his crew worked frantically at their stations. Shields down to 60%, shouted Lieutenant Carter over the noise of explosions. Return fire, Jake ordered. All weapons, target the closest enemy ship. The Defiance's plasma cannons shot bright blue beams at a nearby alien cruiser. The shots hit the enemy's shields and made them glow brighter but did not break through. Their shields are stronger than ours, Captain, called the weapons officer. Jake watched through the main window as the battle spread across the solar system. Human ships darted between the larger alien vessels, firing quickly and then moving to avoid return shots. But there were just too many enemies. Captain, said Carter, Admiral Grant is ordering all ships to fall back to Europa Station. Europa Station orbited around Jupiter's moon. It was supposed to be a research facility, but Jake knew it had secrets. Every human captain did. All hands prepare for retreat maneuver, Jake announced to his crew. We're falling back to Europa. As the human fleet pulled back, the alien ships followed. Queen Zixandra's voice came through the communication system again. Running away so soon, little humans? I expected you to fight longer than 10 minutes. Jake did not answer. He was too busy watching his ships retreat in good order. Despite being outnumbered, not one human ship had been destroyed yet. His people knew how to fight. 20 minutes later, the human fleet reached Europa Station. From the outside, it looked like a simple research base built into the ice of Jupiter's moon. It had a few small buildings and what appeared to be weak defense guns. Commander Alex Stone was in charge of the station. Jake had served with Alex during the Centauri Wars, and he knew the man was tough and smart. All ships. This is Commander Stone. Welcome to Europa Station. Take defensive positions around the base. We're about to show our visitors something special. The alien fleet arrived a few minutes later. Queen Zixandra's flagship, a massive crystal ship 3 times larger than any human vessel, moved to the front of her formation. Pathetic humans, her voice echoed across all frequencies. You hide behind a small moon base like children hiding from monsters. Surrender now, and I will make your deaths quick. Commander Stone's voice answered her. Your Majesty, this is Commander Alex Stone of Europa Station. I have a message for you. Speak quickly, human. You are wasting my time. The message is this. You made a big mistake coming here. Suddenly, the ice around Europa Station began to crack and fall away. What had looked like a small research base was actually something much bigger. Huge weapons came out of hidden ports in the moon's surface. Energy shields flicked on around massive gun positions that had been invisible before. The Queen's voice sounded different now, less confident. What is this? This, said Commander Stone, is what we call a fortress. The hidden weapons of Europa Station opened fire. These were not the small plasma cannons that the human ships carried. These were massive siege guns that could crack planets. Beams of pure energy, each one thicker than a building, shot out from the moon. The first shots hit 3 alien ships before they could react. The enemy vessels, which had seemed so powerful before, simply exploded into pieces. All ships, concentrate fire on the station, the Queen screamed. But it was too late. Europa Station had been built for this moment. For 20 years. Ever since the last alien invasion, humans had been preparing. The station's shields were stronger than anything the aliens had seen. Their weapons bounced off harmlessly. Meanwhile, the human fleet attacked from all sides. Captain Jake Morrison led his ship in a charge against the alien right flank. His tactics were not like anything in the military books. Instead of staying at long range, he brought his ship in close to the enemy. Captain, his weapons officer shouted, we're too close. If we fire at this range, we might damage ourselves. Do it anyway, Jake ordered. The Defiance fired all its weapons at point blank range into an alien cruiser. The enemy ship's shields collapsed and the plasma beams tore through its hull. But the explosion was so close that it damaged the Defiance too. "Hull breach on Deck 7, reported Carter. "Emergency crews responding." This was how humans fought. They did not care about protecting their own ships if it meant destroying the enemy. They fought like their lives depended on it, because they did. On Europa Station, Sergeant Kelly Brooks led her Marine unit in preparing for boarding actions. She knew the aliens would try to send soldiers onto the station. "Listen up, Marines," she shouted to her troops. "The aliens think they can take our home. Let's show them how wrong they are." Her Marines were not like soldiers from other species. They had trained since childhood for this kind of fight. Every human knew that someday aliens would come to take Earth. Every human was ready. Engineer Tony Martinez worked frantically in the station's power core. "Commander Stone, the experimental weapons are ready." "What experimental weapons?" asked one of the younger officers. Commander Stone smiled grimly. "Something we've been working on since the Craxi invasion. Tony, activate the gravity disruptors." Martinez pressed a series of buttons. Suddenly, several alien ships began to spin out of control. The humans had found a way to disrupt the artificial gravity that kept the enemy ships stable. "Impossible!" Queen Zixandra's voice carried panic now. "How are they doing this?" 3 more alien ships crashed into each other as their gravity systems failed. The Queen watched her perfect formation fall apart as human weapons tore through her fleet. But the humans were taking damage too. The Defiance had been hit so many times that half its systems were offline. Other human ships were in similar condition. "Captain," said Carter, "Admiral Grant is ordering us to ram the enemy flagship." Jake looked at the massive crystal ship where Queen Zixandra commanded her fleet. It was bigger than 10 human ships, put together. Ramming it would be suicide. "Copy that," Jake said calmly. "All hands prepare for ramming speed." Dr. Johnson grabbed his arm. "Captain, you can't. The whole crew will die." Jake looked at her with sad eyes. "Doctor, this is what we do. We protect Earth no matter what it costs." The Defiance turned toward the alien flagship and accelerated. Other human ships saw what Jake was doing and followed. It was not an ordered tactic. It was just how humans fought when their backs were against the wall. Queen Zixandra watched in horror as 5 human ships flew straight at her flagship, ignoring all the weapons fire directed at them. 2 of the ships exploded before reaching her, but 3 made it through. The first ship, a destroyer called the UES Courage, crashed into the flagship's left side. The explosion tore a massive hole in the crystal hull. The second ship hit the engines, causing secondary explosions throughout the ship. Then came the Defiance. Captain Jake Morrison's ship, already damaged and bleeding air, slammed into the flagship's main hangar bay. The impact was so hard that it sent shockwaves through both ships. Jake woke up on the floor of his bridge. Emergency lights were flashing, and he could hear the hiss of escaping air. Most of his crew was unconscious or worse. "Carter," he called out. "Carter, are you alive?" Lieutenant Ryan Carter groaned and sat up from behind his station. "Still here, Captain." "Barely." Jake stood up and looked around. Through a hole in the wall, he could see they were inside the alien ship. The Defiance had punched completely through the flagship's hull. "Sergeant Brooks to Captain Morrison," came a voice through his radio. "Sir, we have Marine units standing by for boarding action." Jake smiled. Even after crashing their ship, his people were ready to keep fighting. "Copy that, Sergeant. Let's go pay the Queen a visit." As Jake and his surviving crew prepared to board the enemy flagship, Queen Zixandra sat on her throne in shock. Half her fleet was destroyed or disabled, her own ship was crippled, and she could hear explosions getting closer as human soldiers fought their way through her corridors. For the first time in her life, the great Queen Zixandra was afraid. Queen Zixandra sat on her crystal throne and watched the security screens around her throne room. What she saw made her blood run cold. Human soldiers were moving through her ship like unstoppable demons. The screens showed her royal guards, the finest warriors in the Veltar Empire, being cut down by humans in simple metal armor. These guards had never lost a battle before today. They had conquered worlds and defeated armies, but they could not stop the humans. "Your Majesty," said her communications officer, his voice shaking with fear. "The humans have reached Deck 15. They are only 3 levels below us." The Queen could hear the sound of fighting getting closer. Explosions echoed through the walls of her flagship. Emergency lights flashed red, casting strange shadows across her throne room. Captain Jake Morrison climbed through the wreckage of his ship and into the alien vessel. His head was bleeding and his left arm hung useless at his side, but he could still fight. Behind him came 12 of his crew members who had survived the crash. "Stay close," Jake told them. "Watch each other's backs. These aliens are tough, but they're not used to fighting humans." The first alien guards they met were 7 feet tall with purple skin and crystal armor. They carried energy weapons that could cut through steel. They should have been more than a match for humans with simple projectile guns, but the aliens fought like they were in a parade. They stood in neat lines and fired their weapons in careful patterns. They had learned warfare from books and computers. Jake and his men fought like animals, protecting their cubs. They used the ship's corridors and broken machinery as cover. They moved fast and hit hard. When their guns ran out of bullets, they used knives. When their knives broke, they used their fists. Sergeant Mike Davis led a group of Marines from the station who had boarded through another hole in the ship. His unit ran into the Queen's personal guard commander, a massive alien named Thex Mori. Thex Mori was 8 feet tall and covered in scars from 200 battles. He had never been defeated in personal combat. His crystal sword could cut through any armor. "Human," Thex Mori said in perfect English. "I am Thex Mori, champion of the Royal Guard. I have killed warriors from 50 different worlds. You will be just another trophy." Sergeant Davis looked up at the giant alien. Mike was average height for a human, which made him tiny compared to Thex Mori. He carried a simple combat knife and a pistol with no bullets left. "Big guy," Mike said calmly. "I'm from Detroit. We eat guys like you for breakfast." The alien champion attacked with speed that should have been impossible for something so large. His crystal sword moved like lightning, cutting through the air, where Mike's head had been a second before. But Mike was not there anymore. He had dropped low and rolled to the side, the way human soldiers were taught to fight larger enemies. As he rolled, he slashed with his knife at the alien's leg. The knife was just steel, but it was sharp, and Mike knew where to cut. Thex Mori roared in pain and surprise as blue blood flowed from the wound. "Impossible," the alien champion said. "Your weapon cannot cut through my armor." "Armor doesn't cover everything," Mike replied. He had found the joints where the crystal plates met. That was the difference between humans and other species. Humans studied their enemies and found their weaknesses. The fight continued for several minutes. Thex Mori was stronger and had better weapons, but Mike was faster and smarter. Every time the alien swung his sword, the human was somewhere else. Every time Mike attacked, he hit a weak spot. Finally, Thex Mori made a mistake. He raised his sword too high, leaving his chest exposed for just a moment. Mike's knife found the gap in his armor and slid between his ribs. The great champion of the Royal Guard fell to his knees, then collapsed. He looked up at Mike with confusion in his dying eyes. "How?" he whispered. "Because this is my home," Mike said simply. "And nobody takes my home." Meanwhile, Captain Morrison and his team had fought their way to the upper levels of the ship. Jake's arm was still broken, and he was bleeding from several wounds, but he kept moving forward. "Captain," said one of his men, "maybe we should fall back. We've done enough damage." Jake shook his head. "We've finished this. That queen needs to understand something." They reached the entrance to the throne room and found it guarded by 20 of the aliens' best soldiers. The guards were positioned behind energy barriers and had heavy weapons pointed at the doorway. Any sane military commander would have called for backup or tried to find another way in. But Jake Morrison was not thinking like a commander anymore. He was thinking like a human father who knew that every minute this battle continued, more humans were dying. "Grenades," he told his men. They threw their remaining explosive devices at the energy barriers. The barriers held, but the explosions created clouds of smoke and debris that blocked the aliens' vision. Jake and his team charged through the smoke. It was not a smart tactic. It was not elegant or sophisticated. It was just raw human determination. Half of Jake's men died in the charge, but the other half made it to the guards' positions. Up close, with knives and fists, the humans were deadly. The aliens had trained to fight with energy weapons at long range. They had not trained for humans who would grab their weapons and use them as clubs. When the smoke cleared, Jake Morrison stood alone in front of the entrance to the throne room. His men were all dead or dying behind him. His uniform was torn and bloody. His broken arm hung at his side, but he was still standing. The doors to the throne room opened with a soft sound. Jake walked inside and saw Queen Zixandra sitting on her crystal throne. She was surrounded by 6 more guards, but she held up a hand to stop them from attacking. "So," she said in a voice that tried to sound calm, "you are the human warrior I have heard so much about." Jake looked around the room. The walls were covered with crystal that showed images of the battle outside. Most of the Queen's fleet was destroyed or fleeing. Europa Station still stood strong, its guns firing at any alien ship that came too close. "I'm just a ship captain," Jake said. "And you attacked my home." The Queen studied him carefully. She had expected humans to be larger, more frightening. This one was smaller than her guards and armed with primitive weapons, but there was something in his eyes that made her afraid. "Your home is now part of my empire," she said, but her voice shook slightly. "No," Jake replied simply. "It's not. I have conquered 12 star systems. I have destroyed entire civilizations. What makes you think your pathetic species can stand against me?" Jake was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke in a voice that was calm, but somehow more terrifying than any scream. "Because this is not about conquest or glory or building empires. This is about protecting our families. And when humans fight to protect their families, we don't stop. We don't surrender. We don't give up. We just keep fighting until either we win or we're all dead." The Queen looked into his eyes and saw something that made her understand why the galaxy's oldest races spoke of humans in whispers. She saw absolute determination. She saw someone who would die before he let harm come to his people. She also saw something else that shocked her. She saw mercy. Despite everything she had done, despite the deaths she had caused, this human was not here to kill her out of revenge. He was here to make sure she never threatened his home again. "What do you want?" she asked quietly. "I want you to leave," Jake said. "I want you to take whatever ships you have left and go back where you came from. And I want you to never come back. And if I refuse..." Jake looked at the screens showing the battle outside. Most of her fleet was gone. Her flagship was crippled. Her best warriors were dead. "Then we'll finish what you started," he said. "But this time we'll be the ones coming to your worlds." "Queen," Zixandra realized with growing horror that he meant it. These humans would not stop with defending their home. If she pushed them too far, they would become the invaders. And after seeing what they could do when they were defending, she did not want to see what they could do when they were attacking. For the first time in her long life, the great Queen Zixandra surrendered. Queen Zixandra looked at the human standing in front of her throne and spoke words she had never said before in her life. "I surrender." Captain Jake Morrison nodded slowly. Blood was still dripping from his wounds, and his broken arm hung useless at his side, but his eyes never left the Queen's face. "Smart choice," he said quietly. "Now order your remaining ships to withdraw from our system." The Queen reached for the communication device on her throne with shaking hands. "All Veltar ships, this is Queen Zixandra. Cease fire immediately. All units are to withdraw from the Terran sector at once." "Your Majesty?" came a confused voice from one of her ship commanders. "But we can still fight. We have 40 ships left." "No," the Queen said firmly. "We are leaving. Do not question my orders." Jake watched the tactical displays around the throne room as the alien ships began to pull back. Some moved slowly, clearly damaged from the battle. Others retreated quickly, eager to escape. "Why?" the Queen asked suddenly. "Why what? Why did you not pursue my ships when they retreated?" Why did you not try to capture more prisoners? Any other species would have pressed their advantage. Jake was quiet for a moment, thinking about his answer. Because we're not conquerors. We don't fight to take over other worlds. We fight to protect our own. The Queen studied his face. But you could have. You could have destroyed my entire fleet. You could have demanded tribute or taken territory. We could have, Jake agreed. But that's not who we are. We just want to be left alone. This concept was completely foreign to Queen Zixandra. In her experience, every species that won a battle tried to gain something from it. Territory, resources, slaves, tribute. The idea of fighting only for protection and then stopping was something she had never encountered. I do not understand. Your people, she admitted. Jake almost smiled, but he was too tired. Most aliens don't, that's usually their mistake. An hour later, Jake was back aboard Admiral Grant's flagship getting medical treatment for his wounds. The human fleet was regrouping around Europa Station, counting their losses and celebrating their victory. How many ships did we lose? Jake asked Admiral Grant. 12 destroyed, 8 severely damaged, but Jake, we won. Against odds of 4-1, we actually won. Jake nodded, but he did not look happy. How many crew members? 237 dead, 400 wounded. Each number represented someone Jake knew, people with families back on Earth, people who had died protecting their home. The victory felt hollow when he thought about the cost. Admiral, said Dr. Johnson, who had arrived on the flagship to help with prisoner interrogations. I've been talking to some of the captured alien officers. They're telling interesting stories about their queen. What kind of stories? Apparently, she's never surrendered before. In 50 years of conquering, she's never even considered the possibility of defeat. What happened on that ship changed her completely. Meanwhile, Queen Zixandra sat in her damaged flagship as it limped back toward Veltar space. Her remaining ships formed a protective formation around her, but she barely noticed. She was too busy thinking about what she had seen. Her communications officer approached her throne carefully. Your Majesty, we're receiving messages from the other empires. They want to know what happened here. Tell them nothing, the Queen said quietly. But, Your Majesty, they'll want to know why we retreated. The Queen was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke. Tell them that the Terran sector is forbidden. No ship is to enter human space under any circumstances. They'll ask why. Tell them. The Queen paused, thinking about Captain Morrison's eyes. Tell them that the humans are exactly what the legends say they are. 3 months later, Ambassador Helterim stood before the Galactic Council, delivering his report on the Battle of Europa Station. The human defense was unprecedented, he told the assembled representatives. They fought with a ferocity that none of our military analysts predicted. The Veltar Empire, which has conquered 12 star systems, was completely defeated by a force 1/4 their size. An elder from the Kraxi Empire raised a tentacle. Ambassador, are you saying that the old stories about human warriors are true? I am saying, Heltrim replied carefully, that any species considering expansion into human territory should reconsider very carefully. The council chamber was silent for a moment. Then a representative from the Bloodclaw fleet spoke up. What? About revenge? Surely the Veltar will return with a larger force. Actually, Helterim said, Queen Zixandra has issued an empire-wide order forbidding any contact with humans. She has declared the entire Terran sector off-limits to Veltar ships. This caused a stir throughout the chamber. The Veltar were known for their pride and their refusal to accept defeat. Furthermore, Heltrim continued, the Queen has begun warning other species away from human space. She personally contacted the Hive Mind Collective last week to advise them against their planned expansion in that direction. Back on Earth, life slowly returned to normal. The damaged ships were repaired or replaced. Families mourned their dead and celebrated their survivors. Children played games where they pretended to be brave space captains fighting off alien invaders. Captain Jake Morrison was promoted to Admiral and put in charge of Earth's outer system defenses. His first order was to expand Europa Station and build more hidden fortresses throughout human space. We got lucky this time, he told his staff during a planning meeting. The Veltar underestimated us. The next ones might not. Sir, asked one of his junior officers, do you really think there will be a next time? Jake looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there were thousands of alien species, some peaceful and some not. Earth was just one small world in a very big galaxy. There's always a next time, he said, but when it comes, we'll be ready. 1 year later, Queen Zixandra received a report that made her smile for the first time since the battle. The Zephyrian Armada, a powerful military force from the far side of the galaxy, had announced plans to invade the Terran sector. The Queen immediately sent her fastest ship to intercept them. When her ambassador met with the Zephyrian admiral, the conversation was short. Admiral, the Veltar ambassador said, Queen Zixandra wishes to inform you that the humans are under her protection. Any attack on their territory will be considered an attack on the Veltar Empire. The Zephyrian admiral laughed. Your queen fears a primitive species? How amusing. My queen, the ambassador replied calmly, has stood face to face with a human warrior. She knows what they are capable of. If you are wise, you will listen to her warning. The admiral ignored the warning and proceeded with his invasion plans. 3 weeks later, his fleet was completely destroyed by the humans in what became known as the Second Battle of the Outer Rim. No Zephyrian ship escaped to tell the tale. When news of the battle reached Queen Zixandra, she was not surprised. She had tried to warn them just as she had tried to warn others, but some species had to learn the hard way that humans were not like other races. Late that night, alone in her throne room, the Queen looked at a holographic image she kept hidden from her advisors. It showed Captain Jake Morrison standing in her throne room, bloodied but unbroken, offering her mercy when he could have chosen revenge. She had learned something important that day. The most dangerous warriors in the galaxy were not the ones who fought for conquest or glory. They were the ones who fought for love. And humans, she now understood, fought for love more fiercely than any species in the known universe. The galaxy had learned a new truth. Some legends are not exaggerated. Sometimes they do not tell the whole story, because the whole story is too frightening to believe. Humanity had taken its place among the stars not as conquerors, but as protectors, and that, Queen Zixandra realized, made them more terrifying than any empire that had ever existed.